Hello everyone, and welcome to our emergency procedures video. In this video, we will be going over our evacuation plan in the event of an emergency at the historic theater. In the case of an emergency involving the safety of patrons, artists, or any other personnel in the building, the production staff and front of house staff will function as emergency supervisors. All procedures will be managed through these supervisors. Evacuation assignments. Person number 1, the communicator. This person should be a front of house staff member, such as the front of house manager, the assistant general manager, or the general manager. This person will exit the building and make their way to the control area with a bullhorn. This bullhorn is located at the bottom of the house left staircase. The control area is located at the base of the fire escape in front of the flower bed, house left. This person should be ready to visually and by radio check in with the other points of refuge, as well as meet with city emergency personnel and meet up with the production points of contact. Once production has arrived and the information has been passed on, the production staff is now in charge of the entire facility. The communicator will report back to the production lead to determine when patrons can re-enter the building. Once production has been told by the city's emergency personnel that the emergency is over, production, along with the other music hall staff on duty, will decide whether or not the music hall can proceed with the show. Person number 2, Von Maul point of contact. This person should also be from front of house staff. The Von Maul contact must take a bullhorn from the bookshelf in the right orchestra and ensure the orchestra fire doors are open before proceeding to Von Maul to help establish a point of refuge for patrons and volunteers. Any additional front of house staff on duty should check the balcony doors and proceed down the fire escape, then to the TD Bank parking lot to establish a point of refuge for patrons and volunteers. Stage manager. The stage manager on duty will interrupt the performance and make an emergency announcement. Once this announcement has been made to the audience, the stage manager's job is to then help facilitate the evacuation of the back of house area. Fire alarms will be pulled during and or in conjunction with this announcement if they have not already been pulled. Once the back of house area evacuation has begun, the stage manager should make their way to the control area to meet up with the communicator. Production staff is responsible for getting the artists, crew, and other back of house staff safely out of the building from the 2 exits on either side of the stage house. Point of refuge for the production staff and artists as well as their crew is the TD Bank parking lot. Non-operational staff. If you are on non-operational staff, please evacuate and check in with the operational staff at any point of assembly, whether it is Von Maul or TD Bank. Volunteers. Orchestra left volunteers. The first volunteer out the door should open the door and take the emergency bag, which is a red duffel bag near the exit, and stop traffic if able. Then continue to the point of refuge at the TD Bank parking lot. Second volunteer should follow the first volunteer and head directly to the TD Bank parking lot to meet up with the additional front of house staff. Please direct patrons to follow you. The third volunteer should help to create a secure point of refuge at TD Bank. Orchestra right volunteers. The first volunteer out the door should open the door and take the emergency bag. Then stop traffic on Congress Street if able and proceed to Von Maul as a point of refuge. The second volunteer should follow directly behind the first volunteer. Go directly to Von Maul and meet up with the front of house staff member, directing patrons to follow you. Third volunteer should help to create a secure point of assembly at Von Maul.
Balcony volunteers.
Please exit down the fire escape and move directly to the TD Bank parking lot area of assembly, directing patrons to follow you. Notes. Volunteers should go immediately to their designated emergency exits to confirm safe and clear passage for the patrons in their area and proceed to the exits themselves. It is essential that these volunteers ask patrons to move out of the street and into the parking lot area at TD Bank or Von Maul. The fire door ushers and staff members should remain with their evacuation group of patrons to wait for further instruction from either emergency personnel or emergency supervisors on staff. While you are waiting, please try to answer questions from patrons and staff. Once the communicator has control of the situation, they should ask that volunteers are dispersed throughout the crowd of patrons to be available to answer questions and keep calm. If the fire department determines that it is safe to return to the building and proceed with the event, an announcement will be made to all volunteers and staff. Please assist with the re-entry of patrons and seating in the theater. Once patrons and artists are back in the building, the stage manager or house manager will make an announcement with any explanations or thanks that are necessary. The event will then proceed. If it is determined that the building may not be re-entered, an announcement will be made outside at the points of refuge. The volunteers should then assist in safely getting patrons dispersed. Please make sure to keep patrons out of the streets to enable the passage of emergency vehicles. A house manager will assign a volunteer at each TD Bank and Von Maul to answer any questions as patrons are leaving, and to take down any information about personal items that are remaining inside. As items are retrieved after the emergency, we will contact the owners and let them know when they can pick them up at the box office. If any patron has been injured during the evacuation, please inform an emergency supervisor immediately. This is so they can notify the authorities for assistance. Once it is determined that a patron needs medical assistance, at least one volunteer should remain with that patron until the emergency personnel is available. Staff and volunteers may not leave after an emergency without first checking in with the emergency supervisors. There may be a need for your assistance in information gathering as required by the authorities. Things to remember. High heel shoes should be removed before exiting through the balcony fire escape. If you see any early signs of an emergency, yet there's no immediate danger to persons in the building, please seek out one of these supervisors. They will determine how to proceed. If it is determined that it is a true emergency situation requiring evacuation, the fire alarm must be triggered. In the event of an emergency situation, communication is key. Please make sure to update your team members and other personnel of any new information as soon as it becomes available. Thank you all so much for watching, and please remember to stay safe. We hope to see you in our next video.